Jingiwalla Widaware Jugan Widjabul. My name's Rhoda Roberts. I'm from the Bundjalung Territories and the Widjabul clan group of Northern New South Wales. And a big welcome to The Journey Begins. I'm also a board member of the Welcome to Country, and as a first not-for-profit marketplace, we started a soft launch back in November, and now we have 95 experiences nationally. We're launching this event tonight with what we're calling the new campaign and brand, The Journey Begins. So to begin that journey, we have to acknowledge by Aboriginal protocol and observance of cultural matters that we are on someone else's country. So can you please welcome Mr. Craig Madden from the Metropolitan Aboriginal Local Land Council, who will welcome us onto the lands of the Gadigal.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. Budri Gamarua, everyone. G'day and welcome. My name is Craig Madden. I'd like to start by thanking Welcome to Country for inviting me down here to Welcome to Country. I'm a proud Bundjalung Gadigal man from the Eora Nation. Gadigal land is the land that we stand on here today. Jinya Gadigal. This land, this place is Gadigal. It's customary for Aboriginal people to invite guests or visitors onto our land or country. It's a custom that we've been practicing for thousands of years. So as a representative of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council and a proud Gadigal man, I'd like to welcome you all onto Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. I'd like to pay my respects to our elders, past, present and emerging. To any Aboriginal brothers and sisters here today, if we have any brothers and sisters from the Torres Strait Islands, welcome to Gadigal land. To all our non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters here today, a warm and sincere welcome to Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 clans which make up the Eora Nation. It's a nation that's bound by 3 distinct landmarks. We have the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Nepean River to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Within the boundaries of those mighty rivers lie the Eora Nation. And the land of the Gadigal people that we stand on are one of the 29 clans of that nation. To any guests from across the seas, if you're from across our great country today, great states of this magnificently beautiful city of Sydney of ours, or whatever Aboriginal nation you're standing on or country today, welcome to Gadigal land. On behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council and its members and our Gadigal people, please enjoy the launch today. And once again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, and do give our love to Mum and Dad. The Maddens are an incredible dynasty of Gadigal people, and I know how proud we all are when we walk on the lands of the CBD here, when we think it was one of the first contact points to hear that inherited birthright of legacy of honouring and paying protocol to our wisdom keepers of the past, our tradition bearers of today, and you, our knowledge seekers of the future. So thank you, Craig, very much. Well, of course, we had that wonderful welcome from Craig Madden onto Gadigal lands. But one of the other things that people do culturally is, of course, in some areas and districts, there is the smoking. With COVID, of course, things have changed, and so we've adapted like we have adapted always with our culture. And so we did a pre-record of a smoking. Our smoking performer and dancer was Mr. Tim Bishop, who's a former Bangara principal dancer. He's now doing his Masters in Language at Sydney University. And he was joined by songman, yidaki player and teacher and dancer, Matty Doyle. Both these men come from the Murirai country in the west. And they opened the smoking at a very significant place at Kamai or Botany Bay. And I think one of the really important things of having this digital opportunity to do this smoking, but doing it in that area, is this is an area of country that has seen many people cross from around the globe come onto their lands. And it is the lands of the Gwagal people. They're known as the Fire Stick people. And of course the Capewell people around the La Perouse district, who are known as the Spear people. So we'd like to introduce the smoking.
Oh, Kajo. Panamari. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Ai, ai. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Ai. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Kajo, Panamare, Kajo, Kajo. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Wari banga nini walang. Ai. Kayande.
No way!
Kayande.
No way!
Kayande.
No way!
Yay!
And I'd like to invite Jason. He's the CEO of the organisation up to have a discussion along with board members. So Roger is our chairman for Welcome to Country. And of course, it's an organisation that needs a lot of support for marketing, for getting the brand out there, and also connecting Aboriginal culture in the marketplace. Roger, why? Why did you think there was a Welcome to Country opportunity?
Well, I have visited a lot of Indigenous communities over quite a number of years and done a number of projects. And every Indigenous leader and communities I spoke to really talked about wanting to preserve culture, wanting to pass culture on to their own people, and to be able to do it on country. We heard various politicians say, well, if you want economic development, you've got to leave country. And it seemed to me, unless you have an economic model, unless you have a way of people earning a living on country, then it wasn't going to work. And tourism experiences, being able to do things on country, both were a way of preserving or passing on culture, language to their own people in a productive way, but also for non-Indigenous Australians to start to actually be exposed and learn some of the truth-telling, the history, and the like. Certainly when I went through school, and most non-Indigenous Australians had absolutely so little knowledge it doesn't matter. And it's such a rich culture and the like. So basically, to help people start up businesses or to grow existing businesses, Welcome to Country was set up to really promote the whole topic of Indigenous experiences, which includes, our shop and a wide range of experiences, but obviously physical experiences, visiting country, talking with leaders and the like, but also virtual experiences, as we've seen for COVID. But that also enables people to put sort of toe in the water, buy Indigenous products, help economic development. And by building a platform that can be used right across Australia, we weren't just helping one or two. It's a platform, an open platform that we can build, and we now have 85 experiences that can build up to many, many hundreds and the like. So it also enables small businesses, even in remote locations, to be able to offer world-class marketing. You've got to have great websites. You've got to have great social media. Take a lot of the reasons why a lot of businesses fail or don't scale, and let's do that once, and let's do it really well at a national level.
It's interesting you touch on that world standard because, John, you've worked around the world and you've been really involved with tourism and indeed Aboriginal cultural tourism opportunities that have, when they've been at a very embryonic level.
Yes,
it's been a long journey, and I think that started in the 80s for me, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And when I was formally adopted by the Yolngu people in Arnhem Land from Bawaka, they gave me the name Mungir. And I asked the ladies what Mungir meant, and they said weaver. I said, that's women's business. I thought I'd be a black-headed python, and they laughed. What they said to me, no, John, you're not a weaver of baskets, you're a weaver of people. And the role and the responsibility that we're giving you for the rest of your life is to weave black and white people together, and that's something that I take passionately and with great responsibility. It means so much to me, and so I'll be doing this until the day I die.
You've had many experiences with Kakadu. You've written master plans for Lirawi. And I've seen and know your passion and that commitment to that lifelong relationship to the families that have taken you in and given you knowledge. But you've also exchanged that knowledge. And I think you mentioned once about the life-changing experience.
Yes, it has been a life-changing experience for me, certainly connecting with Aboriginal people and the culture right around this country. And I'm extra. I feel very privileged that has happened to me, and I think Welcome to Country provides the opportunity for hundreds of thousands of Australians, if not millions, to make that same connection that I've made, to walk side by side with Aboriginal people, to listen, to learn, to chat, and to laugh, because just below the surface there's always a very funny story or a joke with Aboriginal people, and it's been one of the greatest joys of my life, and I say that with great sincerity.
Thank you. You are a weaver. I say Jason Eads, the CEO of Welcome to Country, is possibly a weaver as well, because he is the point of contact for the business. He is the connection point. He has this vision about cultural tourism. And Jason, you're a young man from Victoria, up here on Gadigal country. You're a bit of a golden boy amongst the Aboriginal community for what you do. So no expectations. How does it feel, though, to be an Aboriginal CEO of a company like this and a platform that is going to excel?
There's a few things tied up in what you've just said, Rhoda, that I do want to touch on. And I always find it interesting. I still get referred to as young, even though I am approaching 50. And I do recall early days in working in the public service where I was handed all the youth portfolio all the time. And I wonder where that youth part would disappear. But for me, there's a lot of passion around working in and for our community. I want to see our community really achieve great things. And for me, it's about that early stage, getting in and making things happen. It's the challenging part where you've got to really try and work out how do we make this thing work. It's the part that excites me the most. And tourism was interesting because it was coming back to it. A few years ago, I was CEO at the Koori Heritage Trust, and in taking up that job, all I was focused on was the arts. I didn't realise it was tourism as well. But I say that in jest because it was a brilliant learning grounds, and I met some brilliant people along the way, including John and a number of other people who are now staff with us. And so it's been a great privilege to kind of bring back together some of these people. And I think for many in the back of their minds was a project like this. So it was a great opportunity just to reassemble a brilliant team.
Where do you see the vision of this?
I think we're a long way from realising what this platform can be. And I don't say that in a way that, it's all about us. I see that where tourism currently is a bit of product of its age and where it's come from. Many visitors in the past were a bit scared beyond having, this look and feel where they can go and see something but not necessarily participate. I think that people are maturing beyond that, and there's a hunger as humans to connect. And I truly believe that COVID is going to drive that further, because we've realised that we can't continue to do the things that we are without understanding each other. And I think that a platform like this can allow people to deliver and bring new experiences to the market that allow us to connect as people. And that's the part that excites me the most.
So, Jason, huge expectations from the community. How does that sit with you? And as a CEO, you're still young. We're all young, you know. We're all learning every day. What's the greatest learning that you've had from this?
We're fortunate. Many startups don't have access to the kind of resources that we do, and the networks that we do. And I think those really make a difference. The assembling of the network, you know, my first task was to find the people who could help make this happen. And it was a project already underway. And it didn't have, at that stage, people with strong Aboriginal tourism expertise. And that's what we brought back into the room.
Jason and I did an Aboriginal economic development strategy in Melbourne many years ago. And one of the things that occurred to me, and I've never forgotten it, was that it is really time for this country to stop saying what's wrong and how do we fix it, and start saying what is possible and how do we achieve it.
And final words, I couldn't agree more. And final words from you, Roger?
No, I would just echo what Jason and John say. There's a very big opportunity here that can have some real impact, and I think we've got a great start, but a long, long way to go.
Lots of things to do. It is an incredibly diverse and at times very challenging business to be in. I was asked to be on this board with these gentlemen, and one of the reasons I chose, because I sussed them out first, I think the biggest key factor for me to sit on the Welcome to Country board was the fact that it is changing our landscape where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures are given value. And I know in the future, in 20 years' time, our culture will be the DNA that makes up the Australian national culture. And I think that's a really important thing, that we all embrace it. We're sitting on a gold mine, actually. But to move on, thank you, gentlemen. You can now take your seats. But what we're here for, of course, and look, the team have done an incredible job. They work really, really hard, and I acknowledge you all because I think it's just fantastic. This is about launching. This is about having a campaign that shifts that gaze and people start to consider, I'm not going to go to Bali, I'm going to go to Port Douglas because the humidity is the same. And so now we'd like to show you the journey begins. Welcome to Country acknowledges our First Peoples, the custodians who continue their stewardship across our vast lands. We invite you to be our guests and make a true connection. Welcome to Country is a non-profit organisation. It's at the helm of an Aboriginal man and it's run by Aboriginal staff.
All Australians should be passionate about our own country, and Aboriginal culture is a key part of that.
We are the original storytellers, and if everyone understands that message, I think that we'll have a far better future for all of Australia.
It's about learning and connecting.
As we know, it's the oldest living culture in the world.
Simply is the premier site to find amazing experiences and great products around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australia.
Got to have a great website. So what was needed was to have a common platform that could do the marketing, the sales, all those things that small businesses, whether they're Indigenous or not, struggle over. So people can focus on the thing they're passionate about and deliver that business.
It's about creating employment and economic opportunities for the community. That's the number one thing.
The best thing is by purchasing from us, they are directly giving back and supporting our Indigenous communities, artists and their families.
The key is to enable them to stay on their country or in their city and be able to give them a platform to really flourish and create self-sufficiency.
It is basically self-determination and learning about country through the narrative of our lens.
We're not doing this because we want to put money into our pockets, but rather we want to see community benefit from what we're doing.
We want to be able to show that we're in control and managing our stories. We want to be able to share those stories, and we want to be able to create our own jobs and create our own economies.
For me and my wife business, we've got the daughters all working. When we started, we had the brothers involved, we had the aunties involved, we had the uncles involved. Yeah, so we show them what Paraka look like, and get them to Strait also as well.
We're rich in culture and history, and I said we need to share that because that's where we're going to get changes.
It's a great initiative, you know, really connecting with Indigenous tourism, grassroots people, teaching culture and educating people.
This is a form of livelihood, it's independence, it's self-esteem, and it brings pride.
Now that I'm here working for Trips over the last 2 years, I've actually became a Master Reef Guide.
You know, some of us are really reaping the benefits of that in terms of employment, you know, self-empowerment, you know, self-sustainability, economic development in our communities.
It is really time that this country started to embrace the importance, the knowledge, the power and the beauty of Aboriginal culture.
I have always wanted for non-Indigenous people in this country to actually experience, meet and connect with Aboriginal people.
When you visit a destination, you hear that local story, you feel the seasons, you witness the passion that people have on the land that has been there since time immemorial. There's nothing quite like it.
Anytime any Australian's looking for an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander cultural experience, the first thing they'll think of is welcometocountry.com.
To continue your journey and make a true connection right across Australia, visit us at welcometocountry.com. Right, well, what we're going to do is move on to hearing what Aboriginal tourism and cultural ventures are all about. So the journey has begun, and it began a long time ago. We now have a very specific marketplace that values our cultures, our diversity, and of course our landscape, country, sea and sky. But it's really about getting to know the ecology of who we are as a peoples, the ecology of our land and our connection to that country. Some of our operators who are going to join us on the panel have been around for quite a long period of time and taught us many lessons from their learnings. I would really like to welcome Aunty Margret Campbell, who is a Dunghutti woman, but I would suggest that she is the matriarch of Aboriginal tourism with Dreamtime Southern Cross. With Dreamtime Southern Cross. But she's got the big X because she's amazing. And via the new dreaming tracks of our digital era, we're going to be joined by award-winning Nunda Mulungana man, Mr. Darren Capewell. He will join us on Zoom as he gives you a taste of Shark Bay in Western Australia. I'm sure many of you have heard of Monkey Maya, but I think what Capes does so well is he really gives you that spirit of country. This is a place where the red desert sands meet the turquoise blue sea. Quite incredible. And then we will go all the way to our northern destinations, where the rainforest is lush, the buccal vine keeps climbing as it has done for centuries. There's Mossman Gorge, and then there's the sea country of the Cook-Yalanji people. So from northern Queensland, we're joined by Juan Walker. They're going to join us very shortly for a panel to discuss what it's all about being an Aboriginal tourism operator, but most importantly, what people get from those experiences. we know statistics show us that so many people want an Aboriginal experience. In fact, we've experienced it over the last month with welcometocountry.com. We couldn't offer those tours because of COVID, so instead we went with retail. And quite surprisingly, the numbers have increased over the last few months. Australians want to know us and they want to have that experience. And as I mentioned, the experiences have been around for a very long time. And I would first like to go to Aunty Margret Campbell, who I can remember back in the 80s, and in fact doing stories with you for TV on your positioning of wanting Aboriginal tourism as the gateway to Australia and by having Aboriginal tourism in Sydney. Why did you want that?
Well, it came about for a couple of reasons. People were asking for it from overseas, and to me, it was just an extension of my teaching background. I was employed in the education section, lecturing at colleges and universities and schools, and I just progressed out into that. And when we got wind of the Olympic Games coming, the late and great Kumanji Perkins called people together up in Alice Springs for a big national conference to talk about the importance of how our cultural knowledge was now in the limelight, and people were looking to come here, planning to come to the Olympic Games. So it was a natural progression for me from an indoor classroom to an outdoor, where I've got all sorts of seasons that I at my disposal to interpret and talk about that for my children. And it was important for me because I didn't get to go to school until I was 12 years of age, to a white school on the mission.
So you were at Burnt Bridge in Kempsey?
Burnt Bridge and South West Rocks, yeah. We had to go to East Kempsey School, but we weren't allowed to go to East Kempsey School. So I didn't get to go to a white school until I was 12 years of age. So I always say to my people on my tour, I was a little bit less contaminated in those first 12 years of life, in terms of the context of what culture was about for me, etc., yeah. So that journey started for me back. I'd had a long career in education, one of the first Aboriginal teachers to come out in the late 70s, where we had to contribute to getting Aboriginal studies. While it wasn't compulsory in the schools at that point in time, we were adamant about getting that experience for them in school. So part of that was that we would recruit nationally and contribute to, by 1990, at least 1,000 teachers. So people like Ken Wyatt from over there in WA, Sunset, I call him the Sunset Mob, Stevie Albert and people like that. And we had our contribution here in New South Wales. We actually recruited about 170 up by 1990. So I was part of that whole process, and in the mix of all that, because I was very community, we wanted to get the education networks going across. So the establishment of the New South Wales Aboriginal Education Consultative Group, or AECG as it's now known, and I was the vice president of that. So, and we had to keep quite a lot of those young men, in check in terms of what we were doing. So that's how the education journey came for me, and extending it now into the tourism sector is an outdoor classroom for me, and I love it.
Indeed, and I'm going to come back, Aunty Margaret, shortly, because you mentioned the Sunset people over in WA. Well, of course, we'll come back and talk about Sunrise Country here on the east. Yes, thumbs up, Capes. We might go to you in that Sunset Country. You know, people have heard of Monkey Mire, they know of Shark Bay, but I think the experience that you give people is a very different one, and very much with your lens on adventure as well. Why did you get into the tourism sector?
Good question. Two things. Main thing is to be able to look after country, for me to look after the country, and so I needed to be on country to look after it, and to be able to tell Aboriginal story for this country, and be able to speak my language and follow my law and culture every day, and to stay on country.
And it is about country, and it is about knowing that ecology. And I think one of the big areas that we look at from a wildlife perspective is, of course, North Queensland. And Juan, your family is a bit of a dynasty, I guess, with tourism up there, with Mossman Gorge and Port Douglas and those areas up in the rainforest. It's a family business, and that can be a hard thing to inherit. Did you always want to be part of the cultural tourism offering of your family up there?
I was one of the first ones to get into it up here. I started when I was 19 in tourism. It was pretty much by luck I got into it. My grandmother met a couple of resort owners up in the Daintree, and they were looking for young Aboriginal fellows interested in working in tourism, and my grandmother got me to go up and have a little interview with them and have a chat, and things progressed from there. And I did my first year learning about the industry and how it all worked as an employee, and then many years after I gained experience, and I felt as though that there's a big gap in the market up here. There's small walks, and you have the walks to the gorge, Jabberkai theme park down in Cairns. You've got these things where people can go and do, but they're all very small, and they're scratching the surface of bummer culture up, Gulgiyalanji culture. So it was a really good way I saw that gap, and it was a really good way for me to show people the real Gulgiyalanji people, and how we see country up here. And it was good for me because I'd learned all about it growing up with my grandfather, how to fish and hunt and things. Just it was the next step, just taking people a little bit of a big step, learning how to look after people, not just myself when we go out bush, but taking people out, looking after them, and just making sure that everyone enjoys it, and gains a bit of respect and a bit of knowledge about how we see land and how important it is to look after country when you walk through it.
And can you just give us a little tidbit? When I'm standing on the beach at Port Douglas, right, often people look across and they see the resorts and they think of it that way. When you look across that water, it's very different water for you, Mob.
Jallon, the sea, it's a lot of, for us, it gives us pretty much everything, all the seafood, sustenance is out there, but very spiritual place as well, that ocean. When I, get a bit lost and a bit, anxious and worried about things, that's where I go. I go jump in my little dinghy and I go sit out on the reef, go out there, drop a line, and it's a place where I can, get in touch with myself. So, nothing better than that ocean out there. But Port Douglas itself, originally Yeet, that we call that place, and it was a gathering place for people, for our mob, Jabukanji mob, that would come down and we'd have big meetings there, big ceremony there. So today it's pretty much the same thing, big gathering place, but now for international tourists. And occasionally Jabukai mob come down and visit, but we're always here. We're not going nowhere.
I don't blame you. Capes, over at Shark Bay, one of the big things there about tourism, I guess, there was a lot of history about the French coming into those areas there. But you've really switched that. I mean, the adventure you give about sea country.
Well, we're surrounded in Australia by sea country, all of us. But some of us, like me and brother boy, we happen to live on sea country. So the ocean for us is very important. So we call the ocean Woodia. So we are saltwater people, but we have the red sand that connects us to Uluru. So we get a lot of bush medicine from the bush, Central Australia, a lot of vegetation. So a lot of fellas, they say this is where the desert meets the ocean. A lot of white fellas or white fellas, but we say it is desert and ocean. And it is a World Heritage Area like my brother's country up there. And, one of the things we say, we want to educate our visitors, local mob that live here, people that come and visit, to learn more about it, to feel it rather than just see it, because they say, oh, it looks pretty and all that sort of stuff. I said, it's not about sort of what it looks like. It's more about having feeling for country, as Aboriginal people know. So it's about feeling country rather than looking at country, because, country is a healer. It can fix you right up, or if you do the wrong thing, it can make you sick too. So our job is to introduce people to this place so they understand all that. And you talk about the French, well, the Dutch come here, a fellow called Dirk Hartog, but, a lot of people celebrated 400 years because he's supposed to be the first white person from Europe to come to Australia. And we had a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing with them. And they said, a couple of years ago in 2016, they wanted to celebrate 400 years since Dirk Hartog been here. I said, if you'd put a couple more zeros on the end of that, you might have something to talk about. And so we're just putting it in context for people, just to understand that, sure, that fella come here, but he only come for 5 minutes. They didn't really know much about the place. And the French, they took a bit more time to explore and get to know a lot of our old people here and that sort of stuff. And a lot of the when you talk about flipping it, we talk about language and dual signage and including Aboriginal language on all the interpretive signage. I sat on the World Heritage Board for 10 years, and one of the key projects that I was happy to be involved with was to complete a communication strategy for people coming in to learn more about World Heritage, but more importantly, to learn more about the cultural connection to country. So when they go away, they don't go away empty. They fill their belly, with energy for this place.
Indeed, it is spirit of country, and I think one of the countries people forget their own country is, of course, in the Sydney Basin region. There's many stories, Aunty Margaret, about Bennelong and the history of the rocks, and some of the tours you do just remind people that ancient culture is under the cement of the CBD.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've never made any amendments to our natural laws. Another civilization here imposed another blueprint, and as a result of that, just absolutely rejected everything that is here. So interpreting what is here still there. For instance, just look at a sunrise in Sydney. Just look at a moonrise. That sky story's there. Chulku, you got the Chulku up there, the Venus, which is one of the reasons that she coaxed Captain Cook coming across over here, in terms of he was studying the morning star. So you got all those things there that are part of the seasonal 12 seasons that we have here. So, and unless you know what you're looking at, I can still take people down to a tree or a bush in the botanical gardens or along the streets of the Rocks or Sydney. And you'll get the trees still shedding their fruit, their medicines, their barks, and there's all the story attached to that. So when people get introduced to the conservation and ecology of that, and from a dreaming point of view, the story continues on there. From a woman's perspective, Sydney is riddled within the canals and also the parkland areas of Aboriginal women's birthing sites. Again, we've never made any changes or made any amendments to those natural laws. The story is still there. The big, large fig trees, one of my customary totems, the grandmother, Dalwa. When I'm talking about the salt water, if you're born in salt water, where that big boundary of the freshwater meets the big Parramatta River, you've got a natural law there by the joining of those two water systems. So that gives you your idea to say, well, I'm born in saltwater section of this story, and mob up there is all freshwater. So it's still here in Sydney. Sharing that ecological stuff about how young families have been, walking up and down each of those river systems to learn from 4 mothers up the river, 4 fathers up the river, because you've got more than one mother and father in any clan group. So they're all biologically related to you. And one of the biggest hurtful and painful stereotypes that we as Aboriginal people have always endured was when the English arrived here and said, oh, they're just walking about. They're just walking about doing nothing.
Wandering aimlessly around the countryside.
And, the kids and the young men and women have been walking up and down, tending to the ecology, tending to their totem brothers and sisters. And you can't get any better than conservation and sustainability practices there. So it's all part of that. I often say very quickly to people, tell me about your family, especially people who are here from overseas. Tell me about your families. And I'll say, oh yeah, well I've left Nan and Pop at home. I've got 2 sisters and I've got 5 brothers and a cat and a dog. And I said, oh, so you've only got human beings in your family. Well, gee whiz, Aboriginal people, we got all these trees here. What lives in the trees and what lives in the ponds out there? They're all our family. You fellas sure you're not from alien country? Because it's a really big impact on them when they realise that they've only got the idea of a family made up of human beings. Ours is everything.
And I think what Aunty Margaret's touched on is actually one of the crucial moments of when you do have a welcometocountry.com experience. It is about that osmosis of learning that experience, but it literally is about the tangible and the intangible. So you get a taste of the spirituality, you get a taste of the ancient history, but most importantly, you get to sit with us one-on-one and have an incredible experience with the oldest culture. And on that note, we now have, you just had a taste of 3 tour operators. Imagine 95, and it's just going to grow. So on that note, I'm going to go back to you, Capes, and ask, why did you sign up with welcometocountry.com?
They paid me a lot of money. No, they didn't. No, I'm sorry, my sister. And this is another. And obviously, I've worked with Morsey, John, previously, and obviously yourself. Once I knew you were on board, John, sister Kaz, we've done stuff, and Kirsty, and I've met what's his name, Jason, and I met Tim down there. So I sit on an Aboriginal tourism board called WATOC in Western Australia. So I'm not cheating on anyone or anything like that, but it's another awesome platform, a very positive platform to promote Aboriginal culture, Australian Aboriginal culture, and to allow us to educate people about our amazing culture. And that, you know, Australians with the COVID, it's been a blessing in the sense that it's created the opportunity for more Australians to discover their own backyard, learn more about Australia. And if you want to learn about Australian history, you can't exclude Aboriginal culture. And who better to teach cultural awareness, Australian Aboriginal culture, than Aboriginal people?
Couldn't agree more. And Juan, up there, a lot of people go to Bali. They clearly haven't experienced Port Douglas or the Northern Daintree. Why did your family and tour sign up with Welcome to Country?
Yeah, I don't think they paid me as much as Capes, but
Yeah, Queenslanders, you're right.
No, same thing. You know, Capes, you pretty much will nail the coffin. You know, it's a great platform, and I think that the guys there, the team that work with us, they're very keen to make sure and passionate about making sure that Aboriginal tourism is at the forefront. So when people come to Australia, or if Australians are looking to gain a bit of, you know, cultural knowledge, Aboriginal knowledge about where they're visiting, there's no place better than Welcome to Country. And I think it's an awesome awareness out there as well. The guys have been very proactive in making sure that people know about Welcome to Country. So they're very proactive in getting their word out. So, you know, people, that's the first go-to, you know, to learn about Aboriginal history, Aboriginal culture, and be able to experience, you know, an Aboriginal product around the country.
As you can hear, all our operators are so passionate about their country. But it is also that platform and the narrative. When the narrative is through a different lens, it does give a different experience. And Aunty Margaret, you've probably been one of the most passionate people about tourism on the East Coast and been doing it for many, many years. And of course, you've worked with many different platforms. How is Welcome to Country for you different?
Oh, there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, maintaining cultural trading practices with each other is one of the top things for me, not to mention all the expertise that's involved in that. I learned about you and Morsey and a few people who said I came on board without any further ado, because I know the passion, commitment and the understanding. We think the same way, so that when we're talking about interpreting and sharing our knowledge, we know it's going to be respected. So there's a cultural thinking application going on across it all there. Not to mention all that expertise of how that industry networks us right across the globe. So I didn't have any dilemma with it at all, because I initially wanted to trade with an online agency and practice my cultural trading with another Aboriginal-owned, not-for-profit, whatever, and the non-Aboriginal expertise that's part of that there, because they're all, I find it hard to separate who the white fellas are, quite frankly, with it all, because they're so much into this story with us. And they're custodians themselves of our ancient knowledge too, as well. So all those tick the boxes was there for me to do that, you know, yeah.
Geez, you hit on a really good point there, that you can't tell the difference. And the reality is, when you have had an experience and you've actually gone on to country and been embraced by our people, often it's life-changing, but most importantly, it is for life. You make connections that you'll continue for the rest of your life. So on that, where's your future, Juan? What do you see yourself doing with cultural tourism in the future?
A lot of plans, a lot of ideas. It all depends on how much money I can make. But yeah, it's endless. Heaps of opportunity where we are. We're positioned in an amazing place. 2 World Heritage listed sites. Great Barrier Reef just out in front here. Daintree Rainforest behind me. So we're positioned amazingly. So yeah, we have so much opportunity. It's all about finding the right bummer, bum up here people to be able to come and join our teams and get people and show people around and teach them what we have to share, but also being out on country. I think that's the main thing. Is it allows us to be on country, both land and sea, up the rivers, and just being out there, practicing our culture, practicing our language, and sharing it and teaching it for next generation. So my kids are all keen to come out and tour. I get them out all the time. So it's really good to see that the kids have a passion for it and want to be out there, and they don't want to leave. They love this place, and I don't think they'll go anywhere.
There is a great future in cultural tourism, Capes. Many interesting things happening in WA. I guess one of the big things you hear from visitors to your country, how big the sky is and that incredible future that we now have. I know in WA they've started astro-tourism, which is a totally different approach to looking at sky country.
Yeah, so obviously our old people from all over Australia have connections where our creators come from, and stars and astronavigation and astronomy have been hand in hand with our old people and what they've been teaching when it's time to travel, when it's time for ceremony, and that hasn't changed. So it's about having connection, and there's a lot of, let's say humans that are wanting to know what their connection is to the planet. They want to know how we can improve that connection. How long have we got? And they're looking to the oldest cultures to learn more about how to do that and become more sustainable. And, so they want to, and obviously Australians, they want to know about their connection to Australia. And they want to know how the old Aboriginal cultures have survived for so long. And so, that's part of the I call it the awakening. So, that's, when people say people can't travel overseas, well, that's just putty in our hands, because we can mould these fellas. Not only them, but they're not only the parents, but the kids. A lot of kids are coming out too, So, and I always thank these fellas. Say, look, thank you. You're bringing your kids, exposing your kids to Aboriginal culture. That's a sign of the times where things are changing. And this is part of the cultural awakening or reawakening for non-Aboriginal people and Aboriginal people in Australia. And we're at the forefront. So one of the things I tell them, the old ways are the new ways, sort of thing,
I think that's such a good note to end on. The old ways are the new ways, and we do live in the now, and we are booming. There are so many experiences across the country. Can we please thank Aunty Margret Campbell, the Dunghutti woman, Nunda Man, Capes, and of course Juan up there from the Cookie Allengy people. Thank you so much for talking to us. Yes, great advertising there. And yes, youth leadership, that's our next step. So we've seen the diversity, and now we hope that you will join us online over the next few weeks for 17 virtual events. There's stories to be told, there's books to be heard about. So with 17 virtual events, you'll get to know authors and activists like Marcia Langton, Uncle Bruce Pascoe, Joe Williams, lots of discussions, things to see, and I hope you join us online and continue to visit our website, welcometocountry.com. Well, we're going to move into a bit of music now. A fantastic band, Bow and Arrow. Their music is eclectic. It's very different. They started with electronica and developed reclamation work of language and story of her country. They're a really fantastic band. And again, it shows the diversity of who we are as peoples. So Wiradjuri and Gumbaynggirr people. So enjoy.
If I could, I would give you life. I'd turn around just to give you time. It's coming around again. It's coming around again. From up here, I can see my mind. I could be wrong, but I saw you fly. Coming around the wind, following the wind. Oh, 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 oh. If I could, I would give you light.
If I could, I would give you life.
Light the way in the dark at night.
If I could, I would give you life.
Yes, I did. I know I saw you fly.
I would give you life.
Following the wind. I wanna give you life. If we could give you the light, you gotta find the light. You gotta give you the light. Oh, I wanna give you light. If we could give you the light, you've gotta find the light. You've gotta give you the light.